Okay, guys, so congratulations. You have made it to the last new thing that you are going to learn for the year. We're going to be talking about parabolas and a bit about their equations and completing the square. So when I say that a parabola opens to the right, that simply means that it kind of makes a C. And you want to think of that as positive, right? Because it's going in a positive direction to the right. When I think of a parabola opening to the left, it's almost like it makes a backward C. And you want to think of that as negative because it's going to the left. All numbers to the left are negative. Right? And then a parabola opening up would look like this. And again, it's going up, so it would be positive. And I bet you can guess a parabola going down opens downwards, so it would be negative. Okay, so here's our different equations. You notice that when it's negative like this, there's a negative in front of the 4 and a negative in front of the 4. And then up and down, rather than having the y first, the x is first. Like with the left and right, it's y first, then x, and up and down is x first, then y. So the vertex is always hk. So here's your h, here's your k. And P, this is really important right here, is the distance from the vertex to the focus and the distance from the vertex to the directrix in the other direction, which will make a little bit more sense in a minute. So what we're going to start by doing is we are going to figure out what P is. And we're going to look at this right here, this 8. And we see that that's technically 4P. And we also see that a y comes first, so it's either opening right or left, and it's positive, so we know this is a positive 8, so we know that it's going to open to the right. So far, we know it's going to open to the right, and we know that we can figure out what our P is because we know that 8 equals 4P, right? According to the equation, here's 4P. Here's the 8 that I'm setting it equal to. You divide by 4, you divide by 4, and P equals 2. So the distance from the vertex to the focus is 2. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to plot our vertex. So we're going to look right here, and we see that the y value is actually going to be a positive 3, because if you remember, we set it equal to 0, so we would have y minus 3 equals 0, so we would add 3 and add 3, and y equals 3. So it's always the opposite of what you see in the parentheses. All right, so we're going to plot our vertex, and our y is going to be a 3, and our x is going to be a negative 2. So I'm going to go negative 2 to the left, and then up 3. All right, so that's my vertex. Now what I want to do is I want to plot my focus. So remember, it says the distance from the vertex to the focus is 2, which means I'm going to look at my focus. And since I know that it's opening to the right based on the equation, my focus is always inside wherever the loop is, right? Wherever my parabola is. So I'm going to move over 2. And right here, this is going to be my focus. Okay, so my focus is 2 away. And that point right there is going to be over 0, up 3. And then I'm going to look to see what my directrix is. All right, so my directrix, I'm going to move over 2 places. So 1, 2. And this is going to be my directrix. And if I look to that point, I see that it's a negative 4. And it's not a point. The directrix is a line. It's a line. And it's a line that is crossing through the x-axis. So your directrix is technically x equals negative 4. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find the endpoints of the lattice rectum, which sounds super crazy. So don't forget to plot the endpoints of the lattice rectum. So what we do is we go ahead and we count 1, 2, 3, 4. And we see that it's from the directrix to the focus is 4 units, okay? 4 units. So what we're going to do is we're going to go from the focus and we're going to count up 4 units. So up 4, there's 1. That's 1 point of the lattice rectum. And then I'm going to go down 4, which will be right here at -1. And now what I can do is I can actually plot my parabola. So my parabola will look something like this. I knew that the distance from my directrix to my focus was 4, and that's how I was able to figure out, oh, where are the endpoints on my lattice rectum? All right, and then my directrix itself, that line was right here. So it all starts with P and then plotting. Okay, so our first steps, the first thing that we want to do, oh, let me write my endpoints in my lattice rectum are 0, -1, right, over 0, down 1, and 0, +7. Okay, first thing I want to do is plot my vertex. All right, next thing I want to do is solve for P. And then the next thing is I'm going to plot my focus and my directrix. All right, and then the next thing is going to be to count the distance from my focus to my directrix. And then the last thing, which I'm running out of room here, is going to be plot the endpoints or plot the lattice rectum. Okie doke. So let's move on to a few more examples and see if we can do this. I'm going to leave this part a little handy with this next example. Okay, so I have it in Visual Sight. Maybe you have it printed or copied down somewhere. Maybe this will be easier while we're plotting it. Okay, so we see that an X starts first, which tells us that our parabola is either opening up or down. And then we look and we see that it's a -12, which would technically be this -4, which means we know that this parabola is going to open down. So first thing I'm going to find is my my vertex. I look and I see that it's a +4 for my X, so it's actually going to be a -4. And I look and see that it's a -2 for my Y, so it's actually going to be a +2. All right, now I need to find P. So I can find my focus and my directrix. But first, I'm going to go ahead and plot my vertex. Okay, and then I'm going to find P. I'm going to go ahead and say that for P equals -12. Right, so I'll divide by 4. Whoops, I don't know why I wrote a -2. Divide by 4, P equals -3. Okay, so technically it's a negative, but remember you're going a distance. You're going towards your focus and your directrix. Or actually, since this is opening up or down, we're going up or right. Up or down. So we're technically going to move 3 units down, 1, 2, 3, and this is going to be our focus because remember, according to this equation, our parabola opens down, and then we're going to go to our directrix, which is 3 units up. 1, 2, 3, and 3 units up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight my directrix line. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and count the distance from my focus to directrix. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's 6 units away, which means to go ahead and plot my lattice rectum, I'm going to count 6 units over. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To be right about here. And my next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Will be right about here. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect my parabola points. And remember, they point down. And then I can go ahead and I can label my focus. My focus I know was a -4, -1. And my directrix, keep in mind this time it's crossing through the y-axis, is going to be y equals, and then right where it's crossing through. So at 5, y equals 5. The endpoints of my lattice rectum, I'll see where that point is, which is a -10, comma -1, and a 2, comma -1. Okay, so I got a few more examples for you, and we'll see how you do. Okay, so for this next one, it looks a little tricky, but because it only has a y squared. But keep in mind it's y, right? So we know that because it starts with a y, it's either going to open right or left, even though there's no k right there. Okay, so we know it's going to either open right or left, and then we see that this is negative. So we're going to go ahead and set this -4 equal to 2p. So first of all, okay, let's go ahead and do that. So -4 equals 2p, divide by 2, divide by 2. P equals -2, but remember we're going in distance, so it'll actually be positive. And then the vertex. Okay, so if I look where my x is, it's a -1, so I know it's going to be a positive one. And then if I look where my y is, I see that there's no number next to it, right? So that would mean it would be a 0. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plot that, which is going to be over 1 up 0. So it'll be right there. And then my focus, well, remember, I told you that this one's going to open to the left. So my focus is going to be 2 places over. Oh, sorry, I don't know why I said it equal to 2p. Sorry, which means this is equal to 1. Goodness gracious, Mrs. Black. Okay, so over 1 should be right there on our origin, and this would be our focus. And our directrix would be 1 the other way. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight my directrix line. Again, if you're wondering why I switched that to 4, because if you look back at the equation, it's 4p. It's not 2p. I had originally written 2. All right. And so I will write my focus coordinate is 0, 0. And my directrix, it's crossing through the x-axis this time. So x equals 2. Now I need the endpoints in my lattice rectum. So I'm going to go ahead and count 1, 2. Okay, so I know it's 2 over, which means that from my focus, I'm going to go up 2. That'll be 1 point. And I'm going to go down 2. That'll be another point. And I will go ahead and connect them and have my parabola. Okay, so the endpoints of my lattice rectum. First one is going to be 0, 2. And the next one would be 0, -2. Okay. A couple more of these. I am not doing your homework this time because there are so many examples on these notes that I'm going over that I think for your few homework problems, you guys should be okay. Okay, first things first. There's an X first, so we know that it's either going to open up or down, right? And this is positive, so it's actually going to open up. We know that we're going to have like a smiley little parabola. It'll open up. All right, my vertex, my X value is a positive, so I'm going to make it a -2. And my Y value is a positive, so I'm going to make it a -5. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plot that. So -2, -5. Okay, and then I'm going to solve for my p so I can figure out my focus and my directrix. So 16 equals 4p, not making that same mistake. Divide by 4, divide by 4. P equals 4. All right, and I'm going to find, remember it opens up, so I'm going to find my focus first, and that would be inside. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this would be my focus, and my directrix will be 4 back. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so here's my directrix. And then there's my focus. So my focus is -2, -1. And my directrix, it crosses through the y-axis this time. So is y equals -9. And then to find the endpoints of my lattice rectum, I'm going to go ahead and count the distance. So between my focus and my directrix, which a lot of you guys might know by now. Oh, it's just 8 because you just double it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So from my focus, I'm going to go ahead and count over 8, which will bring me to -10 and +6. And I'll go ahead and graph my parabola, and then I'll write the endpoints of my lattice rectum. So -10, -1, and 6, -1. Okay, so if now you want to pause me and go ahead and try this one on your own, it's a great idea. I'll give you a second to pause me. For those of us that are still working ahead with me, that's totally fine. My vertex, I'm going to see as a +1 and a -3. I see that this is a y first, so it's going to open right or left. And then I see that this is a 2, a +2, so it's actually going to open to the right. And I'm going to go ahead and find my p. So I'm going to go ahead and say that for p equals 2, divide by 4, divide by 4, p is going to equal 1/2 or 0.5, whichever you're more comfortable with. So this one's going to be some decimals, right? All right, so our vertex, we're going to go ahead and plot it. And it's going to be over 1, down -3. And remember, y comes first, and it's a positive, so it's going to open to the right like this, which means that our focus is going to be inside over here. So I see that p is 0.5, so I'm just going to move that over just a teeny little bit. And I'm going to see that that is, point is about 1.5, comma, -3. And then I'm going to go ahead and move it over about 1.5 again and see that this is my focus. This is my directrix. My directrix crosses through the x-axis, so it's going to be x equals 0.5. And now I'm going to count the distance between the two, which is simply over a half. Over a half is actually 1. So from my focus, I'm going to move up 1, and I'm going to move down 1, and I'm going to draw my little tiny smushy parabola. And those points on my focus are going to be 1.5, comma, -2, and 1.5, comma, 4, -4. Whoops, -4. Okie doke. The last couple questions, probably the hardest ones. Number 5. Oops, I forgot it's not front to back. My printer does not print that way. Okay, so find the equation of a parabola whose vertex is -5, 1, and whose focus is -5, 0. So my suggestion to you would be to plot that out. Okay, so we know that the vertex is negative 5, 1. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it's negative 5 and then a positive 1. It'll be right here. I'm going to put a V for vertex. And then its focus, F, is right here. And remember that the focus is always inside the parabola. So if the vertex is here, the focus would be inside. So we now see that this is a parabola that opens downward, right? So we know that we're going to use the equation x minus h, x comes first, right? Because it opens downward, squared, equals negative 4p, negative because it's opening downwards, y minus k. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we need to figure out what our x and our y are. So we now know that our vertex is negative 5, so it's going to be x plus 5, right, because it's negative, squared, equals negative 4p, and then our y, which is a positive 1, so y minus 1. Okay, now the thing is we need to figure out what our p is, right? And we remember that in order to solve for our p, we need to figure out the distance between our vertex and our focus, which is technically just 1, right? So if we look back at a past problem and we wanted to see what p was, we saw that we took that 4, we set it equal to p, and it gave us a 1. So from our vertex, we counted over 1. So what we're going to do now is we're going to see that they're 1 apart, just 1 unit apart. So that's our p. We're going to go ahead and plug that in. So our answer would be x plus 5 squared minus or equals negative 4, right? But not p anymore because we just knew that p was 1. And y minus 1. And then you're done. Okay, so same thing here. Again, we're going to plot it out. I'm going to go ahead and plot the graph over here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'll plot my vertex first. So over 2, down negative 4. This is my vertex. And my focus is over 4. 1, 3, down negative 4. That's my focus. So I now know that my parabola opens to the right, which means it's going to be y first. So it'd be y plus h squared equals 4p x plus k. All right, so let's go ahead and fill in what we do know. We do know that it's going to be y plus 4, because our y value is negative, squared equals, we still need to figure out what this 4p is, x, and then minus 2, because we see that that's positive. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to see that the distance they are apart, the vertex and the focus, is 2, 1, 2. So we're going to go ahead and plug that 2 in. So we know that p equals 2. We're going to plug that in right here. So we have y plus 4 squared equals 8, right? 4 times 8, 4 times 2 is 8. And then x minus 2. All right, and our last one. Our vertex is 0, 0. There's our vertex, and our focus is -5, 0. So our vertex is like this, which means it would be y first, right? Y plus h squared equals -4p x plus k. Excuse me. Okay, so I want to do it all at once. I know my vertex, but I want to figure out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know that p equals 5. So I want to just plug this in straight away. I'm going to do y, and I'm going to look to my y value, and it was 0. So we can just do y minus 0 if we want, squared, equals, and I'm going to go ahead and take that 5 and multiply it by my -4 and get -20. And then I'm going to do x minus 0. And that would be my answer. And that is your last problem of your very long notes. All right, guys, please come to office hours if you have questions. Email me, reach out, something or other. Please just let me help you. Okay, bye.